Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. So I think it's really important what Mayuri said in terms of how we use the English language and what words that we use. Similarly to Mayuri, when I read the questions that you'd all given us, first of all, I was struck with actually how clever the questions are. You've asked exactly what you want to know. And I think that's really important. And it reminds me of when you are younger, sometimes there is less of a filter when you ask these questions. Perhaps when you work in this industry and you work with people with mental health problems, you become much more aware of how you word questions towards them so that you don't try to, avoiding offending them or hurting them. So I think that's the first thing in terms of how we actually communicate what madness is. But then another thing sprung to mind. And when I first started out working with people with mental health problems, I remember working with a man who had over 30 years of experience. And he used to categorize them into 3 subcategories: the mad, the bad, and the sad. And he would always talk about how the mad people wouldn't get any better, the bad people wouldn't get any better, and the sad people wouldn't get any better. And I just remember thinking, well, what's the point? What's the point of our job? And I've always tried really hard to make sure that despite the number of years I continue to do this job, or despite the number of patients I continue to treat, I always remember why I came into this job in the first place. And that's because I care, and because I believe that with the right support, people can find a meaningful and happy life. And I think that's the most important thing. So I would love it if we got rid of the word mad and got rid of the word mental, and we stopped labelling people from their experiences and actually thought of them as individuals and how to support their stories and their life. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with what Alex and Dr. Mayuri was saying about using of words and how harmful they can be sometimes, because I think a lot of the people that we support come from a very difficult background, so their experiences were abnormal at the time, which they gave a normal reaction to at the time. So I think understanding people's backgrounds and difficulties and where they come from, and rather talking about this instead of labeling people with this word of mad would be much more helpful, instead of looking at it as an experience itself, as a personal experience, as a way of coping with difficult situations. And I also find using these words can also make us make a self-fulfilling prophecy for people. So when we are called in certain names, then that kind of shapes how we are as well. So I think, yeah, it's very important to know what how we word things.
Maybe is that it, Julia? Is that you? Maybe
Okay.
Pritam, we could open the floor to the students for 5, 6 months with this idea of that madness is a phenomena we need, which can be made up with words, and we need to be careful with the words. So maybe we open it out for 10 minutes, but you'll have to time keep. Otherwise,
No problem. Very good. So you'll have our young ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you have just heard the perspective on the use of labels like mad and mental when defining and categorizing certain types of people. And, you know, as Julia has said, that labeling people makes them, also shapes the way they behave. So what are your thoughts now? Just any thoughts that come to your mind about this issue of referring people as mad people, not mad as an angry mad, but people who have certain kind of challenges relating to their mind. Any thoughts that come up to your mind? Any personal experiences? Remember, the more you share your experience, the easier it will be for our speakers to address specifically your needs. Yes, Konkon, you have raised your hand. Very good. First one to start. Konkon, please go ahead.
Well, I would like to join some lines that madness can also be formed by the disturbance caused by the environment.
Aha. So you're saying madness.
I have met many people. Well, I have met many people when I went on a tour and I asked them, then they were not mad actually, but the surroundings made them look like mad.
Aha.
I talked with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked with them and they said they left their homes and went there because the condition of their family was not good, and their boys and their children were angry with him. And I met an old man, and I was shocked. Actually, it was very disappointing.
Very good, Konkon. Very, very good.
Well, I don't have any more words to say.
Yeah, no.
That's all I wish to say.
Excellent. Excellent.
And
I don't know if his voice was clear to everyone. What I could make out, and correct me, Konkon, he's saying that he has met people who are referred to as mad. He doesn't think they are. And they say that it's the environment that has driven them to that situation, so much so that even some of them have left their families. And Konkon particularly felt very sad for this situation. Thank you so much, Konkon, for being the first to share your ideas. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Sir?
Yeah, you must raise your hand always, otherwise we don't know who's speaking. Is it Shrishti?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Shrishti, come on, tell us.
Sir, I just have a story of mine to tell.
Yes.
Sir, am I audible to you?
You are very audible. Please go on.
Sir, so I never had the courage to, state my story because I often felt like people will label me or just do something else or make fun of me. But today I just thought to do it. Sir, my mom was suffering from kidney failure, and when she was suffering from her disease, she was on steroids and she was on tablets. So she developed depression at that time. So I saw people, though she was cured, but people labeled her. They stated some dirty comments. They gave her some titles like she is mental, and they didn't stop there. They in fact came and to tag me along with my mom. So I think, when somebody is in depression, somebody is suffering from anxiety, instead of helping them, we always try to label them. We try to give them some full text. We don't just go ahead and, just make them come out of the comfort zone and help them out. So I think we should always try to, help such people.
Thank you. I think it was very courageous of you, Shrishti, to share your own personal experience. Thank you very much.
Am I okay to say something at this point?
Of course, most welcome, Alex.
Yeah, so thank you both for sharing your experiences. And I think in terms of what Konkon said, environment is hugely important. If we don't have the right environment, then that can, of course, affect our mental health state. One of the things that I've thought about a lot lately, given the nature of the world and our current pandemic, is that just say, for example, you had never experienced mental health problems before. And let's say we put you in a room and said you couldn't see anyone. You weren't able to leave that room or go outside. You weren't able to have contact with your family. You didn't have food. You weren't able to wash. That in itself, that environment, could create somebody to have a mental health problem, even though there was no pre-existing one or any predisposition for it. So environment is hugely important. So thank you very much, Konkon, for sharing that. And in terms of what you shared, is it Shristi? Am I pronouncing that right?
You're
With
right.
my Scottish accent. I apologise if I've got that wrong. I think it's absolutely amazing that you've had the courage and feel empowered to share your story today. And it made me feel very sad that your mother and you have been treated like this. I think the important part of your story is at any stage of our life, any one of us could have a mental health difficulty, or someone we know could have a mental health difficulty. And I think it is such a shame that in this day and age, we are still struggling to support people when they share their vulnerabilities, because our job is to help and to support each other and to try and imagine if that was us or if that was a family member, how would you like to be treated? So thank you both for sharing your comments. That's been really helpful.
Fantastic. Anyone else would like to share? Don't worry, whatever is shared here will not go out. Okay, Shrishti, you can lower your hand. Mayuri, I think at this point we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, Konkan and Shrishti. Shrishti, by the way, means creation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alex.
Oh, I love that.
So,
I love that name.
yeah, we can give.
Thank you.
So, coming to Konkan's point about environment, I would just like to tell, and I can't add to what Alex has said. That is the crux. That is what it is. The environment is very central. I will mention one of my favorite slogans in mental health, which somebody called R.D. Lang, some of you might know him, said that insanity is sanity in insane places. So it's the insane environment that can drive you mad. We've talked about words. Very often, somebody drives you mad, you know? So the environment can drive you mad. And by mad, we don't mean disease. By mad we mean you are at the end of your tether. You don't know how to contain yourself anymore. And the environment plays a very big part in that. There was something I wanted to say about, Shrishti, what can I say to you? I think you're being very brave. I can only admire your courage. In our culture,
Yes, miss.
in our culture, what we have is, they say, when in the Hindu culture, they arrange marriages, they look at 7 generations to weed out any evidence of madness. This is historical and cultural, and we must have the courage to fight it. So well done to you. Saying that, shall we move on to the next? Julia, did you want to say something about this?
No, I was also very touched by how brave you are, both of you, to be able to share this with us. And yeah, just as I said at the beginning, often what we call mad is come from a mad environment where we are sane, if that makes sense. So I think often human beings are amazing, and the way they can adapt to their environment, the way they can cope with their environment is great. The people really are survivors, and they're really trying hard. And sometimes people in our care come from really, really difficult, traumatic backgrounds, and it is amazing to see sometimes how people are able to recover from such a difficult start of their lives, or such traumas that they experience. So I think what also you mentioned about your mom, it is really sad that you experienced that, and I think it's quite a thing still today to have all this stigma around mental health, whilst we accept that sometimes we suffer from physical health, and it's absolutely fine to, let's say, take some time off because we are physically ill, but being mentally ill is somehow facing a huge stigma in the society, and we sometimes don't look at it the same way as we do look at physical illness. So I'm really glad that you managed to share this with us, and I was very touched actually by what you were saying about your mom. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We move on to the next section. Your questions, like I said, I divided it into 3 clusters. So the next cluster, and this is the heaviest cluster, I have about 10 questions, people asking me, is it a disease, madness, and can it be cured? So when I'm saying to you, it is a phenomena that we make with words, I'm not saying to you that unusual things don't happen. People do hear voices. People do have all sorts of unusual beliefs. So it's not as if these things don't happen. What we are objecting to is defining a person. If mad was the same, the meaning of the word mad was the same as the meaning of the word kind, I wouldn't mind being called mad. But the meaning of the word mad evokes segregation, separation. So we are not saying that it is a phenomena that doesn't cause dis-ease. It does make us uneasy. It does make us unhappy. It does make us miserable. It does. We do experience unusual experiences. So in psychiatry and psychology, we call it delusions. We call it hallucinations. These are often described as symptoms. Now, Julia, myself, Alex, and those of us who work with this, we much prefer to call it experiences rather than symptoms. If you call something a symptom, it becomes something pathological. It becomes something bad, if you like. Whereas if you use the word experience, you give yourself the scope to inquire into it, to look into it. Okay, why is this happening? What do I need to do for this thing to get better? So I'll tell you a story. This is not part of my plan, but I'll tell you anyway. In the Aborigine people of New Zealand, you know, when somebody actually goes mad, if you like, the elders of the community, they gather around this person and they talk between themselves. What have we done? Or what have we not done for our brother to be in this situation? You see, so the environment becomes containing of the suffering of the other. The environment becomes curious about the suffering of the other. And it's not as if the suffering doesn't exist, but the environment helps to carry it and doesn't send it on exile to the psychiatric institution. So that's one thing I wanted to say to you. The other thing I wanted to say to you is that the tradition of calling these experiences like hearing voices or having strange, unusual beliefs, these experiences, when the tradition of calling them symptoms or calling them an illness is not that old actually. Psychiatry has only existed for about, not yet 200 years, psychology a lot less. So it's a modern kind of tradition. In the past, we still treated people who caused social disruptions badly, but we didn't consider it as a disease. So it is something you need to bear in mind, that it is a new thing. What else do I want to say to you? A useful bit of information for you. The French philosopher Foucault, some of you have heard of him. His conclusion was medicalizing misery, medicalizing difference was actually a way of the more powerful in society to control the less powerful. This is Foucault. And those of you who are interested will, I'm sure, go on to read him. But this idea that the dominant people in society control the vulnerable, it is something that, you know, all of us have experienced. All of us have witnessed. What should we do about this? How do we stand up to this propensity we have as human beings to treat the vulnerable badly? So this is something I wanted to raise, and I would like to also share with you we human beings are naturally lazy. We want easy, we are naturally lazy. We want easy meanings, familiar meanings. We don't like trouble. So when we see some unusual behavior happening, then we quickly want to say that, oh, this is madness, oh, this is an illness, and we don't have to engage with it anymore. So this is something as young people you must try and resist. This emotional laziness. We must always try and remain curious about the experiences of the other, especially experiences that we cannot easily explain or understand. That is the way we can then enhance our own horizons. We, earlier on, I think Julia was saying, how we treat others is actually a mirror which tells other people how we treat ourselves, how, if we respect our own lives, we should be able to remain curious about others, challenging behaviors of others. So with that note, let me invite Julia and Alex to comment on this. I know they have nice things to say now. Go for it, Julia, Alex.
Yeah, as Dr. Mayuri says, I think because psychology and psychiatry is so new, whatever we call a disease today, we might not call it a disease 10 years from now. And I think it's so rapidly changing what we consider as normal, what we consider as abnormal. It's just not a set thing, so it will change by time. That's one thing I wanted to add. And the other thing is that I lost my thoughts. Sorry, someone came into to the room. So what we call normal is changing, and also you can see it in different cultures that what we call abnormal here might not be abnormal in another culture. So especially schizophrenia, you sometimes find you go to African tribes, and if someone is hallucinating or got these unusual beliefs, then they are treated as a goddess or as a shaman, or in some other cultures this is absolutely considered not only normal but even something great thing to have. So I think what is normal is quite something that is not really, I couldn't really give a definition to it, because I think what we consider normal is really changing by time, changing by place. It's not something that we can really explain. So I would be quite careful with this label of normal. But also, as Dr. Mayuri said, I think this is a basic human way to look at things. We want to have answers for our questions. We want to have categories to make it easier for us, because we all fear the unknown, and we need to have some kind of certainty. So once we experience that someone is different from us, then we need to give it a label, we need to give it a category, just because we don't know what to do with difference. So I think being non-judgmental, it's a difficult thing, and I don't think it's definitely possible to do, but I try to notice my judgments. I try to notice when I make a judgment about someone, and try to think about it a bit, why I made this judgment, what does it mean, where does it come from, because it's normal to judge, it's normal to want to categorize others and see them, especially if they're different from us, but also I think what we can do is an extra step to actually challenge these judgments that we have.
Alex, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. So when we think about symptoms, one could infer that if I heard voices and you heard voices and Mayuri heard voices, we would all hear the same thing. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about experiences, that allows us to understand the individual element of it. So one person or 5 people may have the same diagnosis, but how they actually experience what we call symptoms or what we have as a diagnostic criteria can be markedly different. And I think that's the most important thing to think about. And I think that's what psychology has added to this field, is to think about the personal experience, subjective experience. I also think as well that Julia's touched on some of the awful things that have happened in people's lives who experience voices or who have diagnoses of schizophrenia. And so when we think of that, sometimes you hear the term treatment-resistant schizophrenia, and that's when people have reached a certain stage and those involved in their care think this is as good as it gets. They're still going to have these delusional beliefs and they're still going to hear these voices. And for some professionals, that's a problem, and they want the individual to not experience these things. But when you think about it, if you think about all of our behaviour and how we develop as people, we take the experiences that we have and somehow we are able to cope. And that somehow sometimes isn't explainable. And so I often wonder that for the patient who never had a good family upbringing, for the patient who didn't fit in at school, who struggled to make friends, that perhaps their voices was their way of coping. Perhaps they need their voices. Perhaps if we were to take their voices away, they wouldn't be the person who they are today. So I think that quite often we think of some symptoms of mental illness as being negative. And while if it was to happen to us, we may be overwhelmed and may find it difficult to cope. However, what we have to remember is that for some people, they like their voices and they don't want their voices to go away because their voices serve a function, and that function allows them to cope with their life. Thank you.
Can I just add what Alex was saying, that it is very important when we talk about recovery to look at what recovery means to the person. So they might not want to get rid of all these so-called symptoms. They might be happy the way they are. And I think what is most important is to find a common ground, because professionals often tend to look at not having symptoms at all and go back to normal, as we call it, while sometimes it's for people, it's really just living alongside these difficulties or finding a life whilst they're maybe having their voices. So it's not always what we call recovery, but it's much more important what it means for the person, and to have it like a personal plan for the person, whatever they identify with, and not what we want to impose on them. I think it's very important.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Julia. I've just made you into an Alex. Let me see now, the final section, and maybe we should stop now and invite the children, because then we'll move on to the third section. Pritam, shall we invite the children? The young people. They're not children, they're young people.
Yeah, the young ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Any comments, anything to share, any questions to ask, including from those who have not spoken till now? You're most welcome. What thoughts are going through your mind? Adit, you have your hand raised. Hello. Okay, they're quiet.
Okay, shall we?
But I'd like to share an experience. While you all were talking about this, I was reminded of the movie A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, yes.
So those of you who have not watched it, please do so, because it's a biographical movie. Of course, it's dramatized, of an actual person called John Nash. This is directed to the children here, that he was a mathematician, economist, I think. He was a mathematician, basically, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics and the Abel Prize. It's a very prestigious prize in mathematics from Norway. You might not have heard about it, named after the genius Abel. And he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. He used to have delusional hallucinations. But remember, that very person who many of us would refer to as mad was actually such a forerunner that he was actually awarded the Nobel Prize and the Abel Prize I'm not sure how many people there are in this world who have won both the prizes. So when we see, people like this in our life, we realize that madness may be too much of a simplification of the explanation of the different behavior of certain people rather than who behave like us. Just wanted to share. Thank you, Mayuri.
The next section, really, I would like Alex to push it through, but I will just touch upon it a little bit before I hand it over to Alex. The next thing was about madness. All this, what we've talked about now, it's really about how we relate to people. It's about relationship or the absence of it. So a lot of these sort of talk about madness is to do with how we view other people. I'm going to quote from the Ubuntu theology of Africa. I myself am a big fan of this. He talks about Ubuntu, which means we are human in other humans. Yeah. And in Assam, we call it Manobota. Bhupen Hazarika sings, doesn't he? Mur aik bhal pao bulile anor aik jano ghin koratu bujabo. If I love my own mother in his case, you also are my own. Love is such a thing. If I love my own, amount to you are also my own. We are interconnected in a dependent origin, as the love says. Bhupen Hazarika also says, Manu Manohar Babe. So this idea of empathy, compassion, these are all very grandiose ideas sometimes, I think. But for me, it is simply decency towards your fellow human being. So I always say, when we say patient, I always play a pun on the word patient. Patient as in quality of patient. Our patients, so-called patients, as in Marie's, they have to be so patient. So I always say patient friend. This patient friend is actually our life colleague. So the importance of compassion, the importance of common human decency, we mustn't forget. So I pass it on to Alex because I think she will have something very nice to share with us about this idea of the relational. Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Mayuri. When I think about any difficulties a person has in their life, I always think about relationships because you act with another. There's an interaction between yourself and someone else, or there's an interaction between yourself and yourself, where you'll have a conversation in your mind and where you can talk to yourself. So there's always an interaction between self and self, or self and others, and self and the world. So when we think about relationships, you often find that people with the most difficulties have struggled to either one, develop relationships, or to maintain those relationships. Now, when we're in trouble, who do we turn to? You turn to your family, you turn to your friends, you turn to your teachers, you turn to your support network. For some people, that doesn't exist. So when we think about how we behave with people who have mental health problems, or how we can help them have a better life, we've talked a lot about the word normal. So my understanding from working with people is that all they want is to be normal. So first of all, sometimes we make things out of the ordinary for them. So they might have to come into hospital and they may be away from their family and friends. They may have to take time off work. So all of those things, we are adding to the fact that they already don't feel as if they're normal. And then we're making the experience even less normal for them. So my suggestion to anybody who works with or who knows somebody with a mental health problem is to treat them as normally, without liking the use of that word, as possible. I think when I got the set of questions through, the one that struck me the most and that stood out the most is somebody, I'm not sure who asked this question, do mad people deserve respected positions in society? And so I've been thinking for a while, why is it that one that stuck out so much for me? And I suppose it goes back to the whole stigma that we've talked about, and the fact that people often fight a silent battle. They often don't share with others what their experiences are for fear of being judged, or for fear of not being allowed to do things. So when does madness, if we're using that term, prevent you from having a position in society? So let's just say, for example, a solicitor. Let's say a solicitor has a mental health diagnosis and is taking medication.
Julia, lawyer. Say lawyer.
Say that again?
Instead of solicitor, say lawyer.
Well, a lawyer, is that what you say? Lawyer, sorry, a lawyer. So a lawyer has a very high profile job, very respected position in society, has a mental health condition and takes medication. So, but every day they manage to get up for work, they manage to go to work, they manage to give their clients a good service. But every night when they come home from work, they're exhausted and they spend a lot of time sleeping. At the weekends, they isolate themselves from their family and friends. Is that person mad or not? Because their illness is being treated. And does that person deserve to be a lawyer? So I will put that question to everyone, because that was the question that interested me the most. So what are people's thoughts? If you have a diagnosed mental health problem and are being treated with medication, but are managed to get up and to do your job, are you still considered mad?
What do you think?
Me?
You don't need to take the example of lawyer. You can even take the example of a school teacher.
Yeah, school teacher, that's a good one.
Let's say I'm a school teacher. I told you that I suffered from depression. I'm still on medication, on antidepressives. Am I fit to be a teacher? What do you think?
Wonderful.
Or do you think they should be put in an institution? Anyone?
Sir.
Who's that?
Educational.
Piyush. Yes, Piyush.
So if you are like that way, then for educational purpose, like only for educational, it is not as fit as a person not suffering from it.
Very good. Thank you for your honest response.
Otherwise, it is as okay. Like the person, like if it's suffering from depression, we would know about the situation, how is it going through, and things like that.
So Piyush, you are saying that to be an educator, that person may not be suitable to be an educator or teacher if they're suffering from depression, as an example of mental challenge. But for otherwise, it's okay. Good. Before I get Alex to respond or any other speakers to respond, anyone else? And thank you for sharing. That's wonderful, really. Anyone else would like to say? So if a person, Alex says, is undergoing treatment for some sort of mental challenge or whatever, psychiatric issues, can they be fit to do their normal work, do you think, in society? Whether they be lawyers, teachers, engineers, drivers, handyman, whatever. Yes, who would like to say next? Shrishti.
I think they can continue. Yes, sir.
Yes, Shrishti, I know
sir,
that your
I
mother
think they
was
can
a
continue.
teacher. Yes.
Sir, I'm just saying that I think they can continue their job when they are cured. I mean, when they are fully cured. My mother continued being a professor in the college after she was cured, after 9 months, I think.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Shrishti. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Welcome.
What I would like to add to that is, in my experience, individuals who have established careers and who unfortunately suffer from a mental health problem, or for students who suffer from a mental health problem before they start and embark on their career, these are the individuals, in my experience, that I have found to be the best in their profession. And the reason that I have found that is because they have experienced something that is out of the ordinary. They have experienced something that people are embarrassed to talk about, and they've shared their story. And they are much more attuned to other people experiencing these things. So they're more able to recognize the student who may be struggling or the client who may be struggling. And because of their experience, it actually makes them better in their chosen profession. That's my experience of it. And there are absolutely no reason why anybody should not deserve a respected position in a society because they have a mental health problem. I think that we should have more people in respected positions with mental health problems. And I can only admire and applaud the people who do share their experiences because, as we've already said, there continues to be stigma. People continue to be judged, and they're opening up themselves and their vulnerability, and they're doing it for other people as well as for themselves. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do.
So what I hear Alex saying, because of your accent, I'm just going to repeat a bit. Piyush and Shrishti together, because both of you are courageous enough to respond. From her experience, more than 15 years of experience working with people with different kind of challenges, mental challenges, she feels that not only are they suitable to work in various professionals, they might be better suited than many of the rest of the people who haven't suffered these problems because they have empathy. They are better able to understand. For example, teacher. You see, many students undergo psychological problems. You have psychological counselors in schools now. And a teacher who has never gone such problems may label you as mad. While a person who has gone through these difficulties may very well be in a position to understand what you're going through and thereby be better at dealing with you and helping you perform well and effectively in society. So that is in response to Piyush, and with response to Shrishti also, I'm not sure there's a need for the person to be completely cured. I don't think that is what I hear from Alex, and also from my personal experience. I don't think I'll ever be cured. I have depression and I've been told to remain on medication, but most of my clients never even imagine I have depression. When I tell them, they laugh and they can't believe it. They can't think that a person who's jolly and so happy and so good at what he does, because I get very good feedback and I'm repeatedly invited by the same clients, paid for it, can think that I'm depressed. So that proves to me without any doubt that there's no such thing necessarily to be cured. It of course depends on the nature of mental challenge you're facing. But in many cases, I don't think you need to have it in a way, be able to cope effectively and be very good at it. So I think the point that Alex has raised, the ability to empathize, to understand because they have gone through the same experience, is a very powerful consideration we should keep in mind. In fact, she goes boldly one step further. She believes more of such people should have such kind of professional positions because they'll be more understanding. Thank you, Alex.
What I actually, Pritam, was not going to do, I don't know if, we psychologists are very good at giving the tasks. So I wasn't going to do a task because I didn't think we could work it out in Zoom, but I will give you guys a task.
Very good.
Tell me somebody, spelling of the word depressed. Somebody should spell the word depressed for me. You can spell depressed.
Abhirup?
Yes, sir. DEPRESSED.
Well done.
Very good.
Now I am going to show you a spelling of depressed. That is a little bit different. So I wrote it down while Alex was speaking. So can you see this? Who can see this?
Yes, miss.
You can see. What does this mean?
Yes, miss, you can see.
Deep breath.
So when
Miss, we are in a deep rest.
You see now, I don't need to say anything else, do I? So what Alex is saying to you, sometimes when people are down and out, they need to rest. It's deep rest. It's not depressed. And they come out of it. And like Sir is saying, like Pritam Sir is saying, it's not about cure. You know, in the UK now, we have a very big movement. We call it the recovery movement. The focus is not on getting rid of your symptoms. The focus is on your quality of life, your dignity, your well-being. Because very often, 5% depression, 95% ill treatment by society. So the depression gets worse. So the whole idea, this idea of depressed was given to be by my from Zimbabwe. His name was Maxwell. Maxwell has passed on now, but one day in a session, everybody was going on and on about depressed. He quietly stood up and he wrote the word on the board for the patient. It is about needing some go and rest. So Piyush, what you are saying, it is quite right. If you are so unwell, if you are so troubled, maybe you couldn't do your job for the next 2 months, but maybe the rest of the world should look after you for those 2 months and help you and talk to you. Like we said earlier on, we are human through other humans. So maybe society should get together, people should get together, friends should get together and allow the person some rest. Back to you, Pritam. Where is Pritam? We've lost Pritam. Have we lost Pritam? Leslie, have we lost Pritam?
No, you haven't lost me. I'm there. Mayuri, in fact, one lady, Ria, she's been waiting for a long time, and she's written me a full. She's written a full text, but I'd rather she speak herself. So, Ria, can you come up and ask your question? It's a very interesting one. Come, Ria. Ria, you have to unmute yourself. Ria, are you there?
Ria.
In fact, she sent me a reminder that I want my answer. Okay, I'll read it out. Maybe she just stepped out to the toilet or something. Okay. My name is Ria and I want to ask something. That is, when I read something on the book, and after some time, I just forget the things which I read. And if I say to someone my problem, then they make fun of it, that I have gone mad, but actually not. So this was my question Is it a disease? My question is it a disease?
I'll let Alex take that.
Alex.
Where are you, Alex?
Alex, are you there?
Oh, sorry, yeah, could you just repeat the first part of that question, sorry?
Ria says that she often forgets after reading. Soon after reading, she forgets what she read and her friends make fun of her saying she's mad. So she wants to know, is this a kind of disease she's suffering from?
Absolutely not. It's quite interesting that you're talking about forgetting when you're reading, because we had this exact same discussion in our office last week. And I was saying to everyone that when I first started doing my training to become a psychologist, I would say to myself, right, I'm getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'll work till 7:30 at night and I won't stop for a break and I'll read, because all my tutors used to say, read. So I would read, and then eventually I would look back on the page that I'd read and I could not remember one thing on it, not one thing at all. Sometimes if we read too much and if we overwork the brain, then we don't remember things that we expect to remember. So I would not worry about it being a disease. And I would maybe ask my friends how many books they've read that week.
Can I just also add that it sounds to me from what Ria says that her friends made fun of her when she told them about it, and I think that probably also made her be worried, am I mad because people are making fun of me? And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, that when the environment treats you in a certain way, you start to believe it yourself. Whilst what Dr. Alex just said, it's an absolutely normal thing that happened, to which your friends reacted with all this stigmatizing, all this laughing. So yeah, and this is what we're facing in society, unfortunately. And actually, I just wanted to add for the previous conversation about working alongside mental illness. I had a similar debate just recently about psychologists whether it's okay to have a mental illness when you are a psychologist. And a lot of people said what Piyush was saying, that it's not okay. But my idea of these things is that if you're able to become a professional on the side of having a difficulty, a mental illness, then you're able to overcome it and you're able to support other people, not only yourself, but even give to other people. Or as a teacher, you're able to overcome your difficulties and teach others. It actually shows a lot more strength than most of us have. So I think we have this idea of teachers and professionals and psychologists to be this perfect beings that have no problems, that have no mistakes, and we forget that we're actually all human beings. And the fact that someone is able to go on the professional route despite all the difficulties, or the difficult background, or the problems he's facing or she's facing, I think that only shows strength. And I would love to go to a professional that could tell me what it feels like to be on the other side, what it feels like, how they overcome it, how they managed it. So I think I agree with Dr. Alex that it's definitely something I would look at as a strength rather than a weakness.
And also in terms of memory, the way memory works, memory is not like a camera, you know, it has several stages. You have to have your sense organs, you have to receive something. You have to register the information. Sometimes when we don't remember, it is because we have been so stressed that we haven't registered. You see? So that thing you must always remember. If you are forgetting, you need to stop and think, why am I forgetting? Maybe I haven't even registered in the first place. So I'm not actually forgetting. I haven't even registered. Maybe I've been too busy. Maybe I've been too stressed. Maybe I'm just bored. There are some things I remember more than others. It's not because somehow my brain is working or I'm mad. It's because I'm not interested. So in terms of your memory question, your forgetfulness, there can be so many reasons why we forget. And madness is not. Unless, of course, when you get to the point, people do get dementia. That is different. But in general life, it is not organic. It is something that is quite related to your environment.
Mayuri, there's another student, Adit. He says he feels a little shy, so he's asked me to speak on his behalf. He faces the same problem of not being able to remember. And in his case, his friends and family says, you're a fool, you can't study. So first of all, I think Julia, you really beautifully connected Konkon's comment about how the environment can create a situation when people call you mad or you're a fool. That's a very good one. And I really like Alex's comment of how about this is actually a strength. You're reading a lot. You're filling your mind with so much of stuff, information that you can't remember rather than being lazy. It also, I think, links back to Mayuri's beautiful comment that we are inherently lazy. We quickly label people instead of being curious and finding out what is happening. You're a fool, you're mad, you're crazy. Now, let me tell you our personal experience, which I hope will reassure you you're perfectly fine. I've become very forgetful in recent times. So much so that my wife got very angry with me, saying that I'm being negligent and I'm just doing it because I don't pay attention to things. And I told her, no, I have no reason to forget to take my medicine. I have no reason to forget to give medicine to my daughter, the bird that you saw. So finally she got it. And I went to the doctor because I have no issues about mental issues. I just immediately go. And I was asked to undergo psychoneurological test and an MRI. And Adit and Ria, let me tell you something. They said, not only don't you have any problem, you have abundant cognitive capacity as it came out in the test. So even people who apparently have good cognitive capacity can be very forgetful. So if your friends think you're a fool, maybe they are the fools, but you don't need to tell them that, of course. Thank you, Mayuri.
When somebody calls you a fool, forget to remember that they are being very unkind and remind them that they are being unkind. It's better to be a fool than to be unkind. I'm a fool. What does that make you? to call me a fool? Where is your common human decency?
And these words tend to stick with us, things that people tell us when we are young, our families or our friends, they kind of stick, and then you start to believe it. And this is why it's very important what we say to each other, or how we express our opinion to each other, because these things that I used to hear from my parents kind of stuck with me, and I need to like notice it when it comes up in situations when I tell myself, oh, don't be stupid, and then I notice it. I'm thinking this because I was hearing it from others, and I believed it, which, you know, it can be quite harmful. So let's just be kind to each other, and be careful with what we say to each other.
And also remember, you do not have to believe people who call you names. Bottom line, period. You do not have to be designed by other people's words. It's easier said than done, I know, but make an effort to love yourself. With that, I think, how much time do we have, Preetham? Because what I wanted to do next was invite Julia, because I know the young people are thinking, I want to be a psychologist. And some people are thinking, how am I going to use this in my work, in what I want to do? So in terms of what kind of psychologists do we want to be? The question also is, what kind of professional do I want to be? Whether a doctor, teacher, whatever. What kind of professional? So I will, as Julia being the young one, let us invite Julia to tell us something about what kind of psychologist does she want to be.
Julia, just to reassure you, psychology has become very popular as a career option in India now, increasingly popular. Earlier, we were very constrained. Will you be a doctor or engineer? But now it is changing tremendously. And there are many here who might want to become psychologists in future. So I think this is a very good time for you to share this with them.
Can I ask you guys if any one of you has ever considered becoming a psychologist, or working in care, or working in supporting people in any ways in a hospital? Has any of you ever considered that? Is anybody interested in working with people?
You could raise your hands. I will see them. Digitally raise your hands. I don't know where Megan has gone. Megan is already studying psychology.
Where is she?
I don't know. No, many of them actually, Julia, what happens in our system of education, it is after kind of class 10 and then 12 that they're really seriously starting thinking about their career options. And we have children now from class 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So right now, perhaps many of them are more focused on their studies rather than thinking of their career options. Unlike you, who read a book at the age of 15 and decided that you'll become a psychopathologist. But I'm sure it is appropriate.
I agree with you. It's absolutely normal to not know it. Some people don't decide it until they turn their 30s, so it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, but there are hands up. I see Sonam. Sorry, Sonam. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sonam, you had your hand up. You want to say something?
I just reacted to my question, wanting to work with people. Yeah.
Sonam, did you want to say something? Yeah, I think she's interested in psychology. That's why she raised the hand, but for some reason she's not speaking.
Yeah, for those of you interested, I can say it's a really, really beautiful profession. And I find it, first of all, that you will always learn in this profession about yourself, about others. It's something that if you do, you will genuinely improve your own relationship with other people as well, because you get to understand people a lot better. You get to understand yourself a lot better. So it's a really, really beautiful job to have. And I think when I'm asked about what kind of profession I want to be, obviously there are these things that people usually say to listen, to be compassionate, to be respectful, and this is basically about compassion for me, about being able to support people through their most difficult times, but also look after myself at the same time, because I think that's what we tend to forget as professionals in the supporting area. So when we talked about being non-judgmental, I think that's something that psychologists like to emphasize a lot. And as I said, I think being completely non-judgmental, I don't think it exists, because I think we grow up with certain kind of ideas that we get from our parents and friends, and throughout our lives we hear all these things about ourselves, about other people, and we kind of grow up with these ideas. But I think the kind of professional I would want to become is someone who is able to challenge these kind of ideas that I was told about other people, about mental illness, about all this stigma. So just someone that is able to notice when she's judgmental instead of being non-judgmental, I guess. And I often, because I moved here from a different country, I found it a bit difficult at the beginning to fit in a way, because the culture is a bit different, the values are a bit different, and I was very, very worried about always saying the right things and how I behave and not to say the wrong. And you know, I put a lot of pressure on myself when I moved here to the UK. And what I learned is to be able to just let go of it and just be myself and understand the person I am. And I found that it's much more important for people as well that I look after or that I support to just have someone that is there with them. And it's not always about what I say or how I or you know, using the right words when I support someone. It's much more about just being there in the space with someone who is in emotional pain, who struggles, just to be there, just to give that 100% attention. So yeah, I think if I think about what a perfect psychologist is in my mind, is someone compassionate, that doesn't worry about going in there, be with the person, have them bear that burden. Someone who challenges their judgments, someone who looks at the person as a person, not as a I don't know, summary of their of their symptoms or their diagnosis. So someone who is more culturally aware, and someone accepting of other people and of themselves. So that's where I'm going. That's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, it's difficult because we all got our own packages and our own past and our own difficulties. But I think that's the beauty of it, that you learn who you are, that you learn where you came from, you improve your relationship with your families, with your friends, and by improving yourself and learning about yourself, you're able to support other people as well. So I think it's a beautiful profession, or any kind of helper jobs or occupations are amazing. So I would strongly recommend to anyone who is interested in it to really go for it. It's a really nice place to be. Yeah.
Thank you, Julia. I always think, I cannot add to Julia, but I'll just share with you. I feel very grateful that I accidentally became a psychologist. I am also not very conventionally religious. I always say my God has an extra O in it, so it's good. And I always describe my work as God's work. So I just thought I will throw that one in, that it's actually one of the most, I'm at my age, at my time of life, I'm very grateful to be where I am and to use my life the way I do. Now I will invite Alex to give you all the take-home message and to also comment on what Julia and I have just said. Alex, take-home message.
Thank you, Mayuri. Yeah, there's nothing I would like to add to being a psychologist. Julia and Mayuri covered it all. In terms of the take-home message, so we've covered, excuse me, a lot today, and the most important thing to think about is madness as a phenomenon. The use of words is highly important. So labeling people in accordance with symptoms isn't helpful. We have to think about the individual and we have to think about the individual's experience. When we think about supporting someone with a mental health problem, we need to think about being kind. We need to remember why love matters. That's the most important thing. So we've talked about, why do people fall in love madly? Why do people feel mad when they lose their parents? Love is at the heart of everything. So the relationships that we seek, the relationships that validate us, if we have that support network and we have the foundations of love and we're able to share that with everybody in our journey, then hopefully the world will be a slightly better place. Any questions from anybody?
Any questions, comments? Mayuri, Alex has very succinctly communicated the take-home messages you all intended, but people interpret in different ways. Is it okay if I give everyone a minute or so just to reflect quietly? What is the message messages they take away from this session? What do you think?
Very good, but I'd just like to thank Alex that she's spoken from my own heart. Love matters. Be kind whenever possible. It's always possible. I'm quoting the Dalai Lama here. So thank you, Alex. And yeah, let's have a minute for the young people.
Thank you. Okay, all of you, if you have pen and pencil also, sometimes it's easier when you write it, it articulates your thoughts. Please take a minute. I'll give you a signal when to come. I would like each of you to write from whatever you followed in this session in your own way. What are some of the messages or lessons you're carrying away? It could be one lesson, it could be multiple lessons. So what are you carrying away from this session as something to think about or something to do? A minute. The minute starts now.
Okay. It's like meditation.
It is meditation. I'm also making my notes on the phone. I like to make them on the phone.
Very nice.
Okay, another 30 seconds. Okay, whoever would like to say, please raise your hand first so that I can call you in an orderly fashion. Adit, you have a hand raised. I don't know if it's a previous raise or a current one. Okay, so who would like to go first? Who's courageous enough to go first?
Or maybe they could write their message, they could write what they've taken in the messages so we can all see it, and just write if they don't feel confident.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a very good idea. You could write your messages also on the chat because you may not want to speak. That will be fantastic. So why don't you write your messages on the chat? We can see it together. Thank you, Alex. Wonderful idea. So we are observing the messages now. The chat.
Do I need to press any button?
No, it will pop up when people type. You will see under the chat icon a notification at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
There's a message. Okay, we'll read. You can see now Asta is written, and then others will write, I'm sure. Thank you, Asta, for getting the ball rolling. I expect others also to pitch in. Wonderful. Khushi.
I have learned from this session too.
Be curious and also to be kind to others. While Astha is written, we shouldn't care about what others think. We should concentrate on our own matters. Focus on yourself. Very good. Excellent. Not that there is any grading for your own learning after all. I'm just using those words as a support, not to be graded. Yes. We should not give names to others as it may hurt their feelings about labeling. Madness is an experience. It is not necessarily a bad thing. It might take you to another world or might be a fantasy which many people does not get to experience. Very interesting indeed. This is from Piyush. Very interesting. Okay. So Kushi has written, Debamita has written, Piyush has written, Astha has written. Very interesting comments. We're very happy to hear them or see them.
What is it?
The most
important
Srishti.
Can
you read? The most important, this is from Srishti, the creation. The most important thing is to come out and try to be a helping hand for such a people and speak up to be an inspiration. Always try to get out of your boundaries or comfort zone. And Adit has written, madness is an experience. It is not necessarily a bad thing, or it is similar. He's written similar. And Abhirup has written, we should not remark anyone as mad or fool without simply knowing their problems. We should try our best to sort them out with their problems. Very good. Adit, you seem to have written exactly the same as Piyush wrote. Perhaps you agree with him. Very good. I think one of you wanted to be a psychologist. Who was that who raised her hand? I'm forgetting. Yeah, Adit agrees with him. That's great. Wonderful. Okay. With your permission, Mayuri, there might be some more coming in. But in the meanwhile, before Leslie has requested me to close the session, but before I do that, perhaps Leslie has some comments. He's also had experiences, I know, in family with various issues. Though I have certified him as sane. Yes,
you just asked whether anybody wanted to be a psychologist.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, yes, I wanted to be one.
Oh, wonderful.
I think you've been saved. You've been saved.
In fact, a few of my friends call me a failed psychologist.
All right.
But in my line of work, always tackling children, I think I'm a good psychologist.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are.
One thing I can say, Alex, having known Lex for a long time, he's a very understanding teacher and principal, especially in the context where we come from, where teachers can be very authoritarian and dictatorial. If you experience it, yeah, then you will understand more how empathetic and understanding and consultative. He's really beyond his times within the context of our country. I think that we should care about others too, That is very good. Nahid Hussain and Mehdi agrees with Piyush and Asta. Asta writes, and we shouldn't judge anyone with their appearance. Nowadays, people always judge on the basis of their looks. So I guess it's not fair. That's true. In fact, many, I think, adolescents suffer from depression. I've read in UK as a result of social media where their pictures are put up and they compete. Is that true, Mayuri?
Yeah,
I've read somewhere.
It's been a long time. It's a feminist problem, body image and all this. People get anorexic and things like that because of this nonsense. So no, you have to. Yeah, it is a endemic problem.
Yeah. Okay, since Mayuri, Alex, and Julia are definitely, they have other commitments. So I know you all will write more, but I would like, with their permission, is it okay, Mayuri, I bring this session to a close?
That will be very nice.
So I would like to share what I have picked up, something very, very interesting. This session was amazingly interesting to me. Thank you so much. And thanks to Leslie for using his network to bring you, Alex, and Julia in. So they are not necessarily in order of importance, but the order in which they came out of my brain as I wrote. One is the importance of being curious and avoiding being lazy. He's mad, he's crazy, he's foolish. Easily finding words and categorizing people rather than trying to understand what is happening here. That's very important, which I heard Mayur say. Then what I heard Julia say, being aware, before you speak out with labels like you're mad, you're crazy, you're a fool, you're an idiot, be aware of what the words could mean to you and to others and what impact they could have. If we just pause before we speak our mind out, I think we can be very, very kind and much more positively impactful. Then again, this was something I heard Julia say, be non-judgmental and kind. In fact, to be kind is to be non-judgmental. As Mother Teresa had said, when you judge people, you have no time to love them. So, judging is a very dangerous thing. Of course, we have professional judgment where you're suitable for the job or not. But judging people in terms of that fellow is a foolish guy, fellow is that, mad, crazy, overall person is judged is, I think, very dangerous. So kind is so much more important. That individual, this from Alex, I picked up something, a perspective, very interesting I found. Individuals of experiences of psychological challenges could in fact be more suited to professional roles, for example, a teacher or law, because they can understand their students or their clients who are facing difficulties much better. Nowadays, somehow we believe that those who talk more like me are the ones who are more active. So there's a lot of pressure. Why are you not talking? Speak up, come on, don't be like that. But there are people who are reserved. There are people who are shy. They have the right to be shy. They have the right to be reserved. And a person, a teacher who doesn't understand these things would actually make life very difficult and in a way promote only those who are talking like me who do not necessarily make very good sense always. So I think it's very important to have that experience to be able to empathize then what they're likely to face. And I will draw from this experience in Zimbabwe, or from the Zimbabwean person that Mayuri had. Depressed can also be seen as deep rest. What is it for me? Make a change in your mindset, a shift in paradigm. We don't always need to think like what so-called normal people think, means statistically normal. So with that, I'd like to end. My view is, my observations of historically great figures, when I say great, those have made very positive, huge impact on our planet, not just on humans only, but also on our planet. In fact, you'll notice they have not been normal people. They have not been run-of-the-mill people. They have been people who are outliers, who are on the edge of the normal curve. And in fact, many of them were opposed or thought as mad, like John Nash was thought as mad. So let me quote to you someone who I'm sure you'll know this quote. He says, first, they laugh at you. Then, because they think you're completely mad what you're doing. Then they resist you. When they start seeing, oh, it's making some sense, then they resist you because they don't want change. And finally, they agree with you. Do you know who said this? No other than Mahatma Gandhi. Of course, he spoke in the context of the freedom struggle, but I think it can apply anywhere, including here. So if you behave differently and people think you are mad or idiotic or foolish, don't worry. You might come down in history as a great person in future. Of course, you might be dead by then, but doesn't matter. We'll get to hear about it. So with this, I would like to thank Mayuri, Alex, and Julia. Because of language, I have to put you in a sequence, but I'd like to put you all on the same level. for your wonderful preparation. It's obvious you'll have very well and systematically prepared, because it's not easy for three people to speak in a way that's consistent with each other. You'll have prepared so well. And you know what that shows? It shows to the audience, I'm sure it shows how much you respect them. They may be much younger than you. They may be little children. Some of them may be too young to understand all the jargon that you use. But one thing is clear, that you are definitely worthy of respect for the time and effort you put in to make this session as best as it can be. So first of all, for that, thank you so much. Secondly, providing opportunities to our audience to interact and ask questions and share experiences. It's a different thing. Many of them didn't take that opportunity, but that's their choice. That is not something you can do anything about. But you provided them the opportunity, treating them as equals, treating them as capable people who have minds of their own. I think that's a great act of kindness. You could easily have lectured and gone away. You didn't. So that was something very, very fantastic. And of course, the subject itself is becoming critically important now, so that we have a much more kinder and helpful world. So thank you so much. May I request all the audience members to give a round of applause. Please unmute yourself. All of you, please unmute yourself so that they can hear you. And then on my signal, we can do it together, it'll sound nicer. We can give a round of applause to the three most capable and honorable ladies. Have you unmuted yourself, all of you? Please unmute yourself. Yes, I'm watching. Most of you are not still muted. Wonderful, wonderful. Please unmute. Yes, Darshita, please unmute. Mehak, unless you want your clap to be like a royal clap. You know what a royal clap is? Like this, no sound. We want a plebeian clap. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last of all, my thanks goes to Principal Leslie, who has been so committed in continuing this system of external talks. And he's a man of few words, and he's extremely clever. He decides that others will do all the work for him. That's why I had to introduce you, and I had to also thank you. But that's one of his great qualities. So thank you, everybody. And I'd request Mayuri, Julia, and Alex to stay behind for a little while, so that the 5 of us can have a little 1-minute chat before we move on. So others can now leave, so that the 5 of us can have a little feedback session.
Thank you. Have a lovely Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, miss.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good evening. I don't know what happened to Ria. She was so keen to hear the answer to her. She even sent me a reminder, and then something happened. Okay, I'm just removing a few. Perhaps they are not in their seats. I'll just remove them. Okay, Abhirup, I'm going to remove you from the session now. Okay. Very good. Darshita, I'm removing you. Okay, so thank you. This is a little kind of after action review that we always have in order to get your feedback and your suggestions for the future, including potential talks, potential speakers, anything that comes to your mind, and also your general experience with this session. So any one of you may go first.
Go, ladies, go. Miss Ellen.
So I thought they all did very well. Well, the first, can I say my first honest thought? So am I right in thinking that you, Mayuri, and yourself, Preetam, are friends?
Oh, we are not only friends, we've been together in school from class 6 till a long time. We're very, very good friends. Oh, Mayuri. You're talking about Mayuri?
Yeah. Mayuri and Preetam know of each other, but are not friends. Mayuri and Leslie are friends.
Mayuri and Leslie are very good friends, and somehow I feel very friendly towards Mayuri. Though surprisingly, this is the first time I met her, because her first cousin Miklu is also a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, I thought you two were friends as well, because I was going to say I could see why you're friends. That's interesting, isn't it? That was my first thought. That's lovely. I know.
I want to say that the two of us actually didn't prepare together. I just put some ideas together and left it with them. And it tells you that my team here, they get me. They really do. And they don't have to try to get me. So I'm very grateful to Alex and Julia. And really, you feel like, when your colleagues get you, it's like like they're comrades, if you like, that you
Yes,
don't
yes,
feel lonely anymore in this work. Because
that's
there's
right.
a lot of resistance, as you said, Pritam, in our work. There is a lot of resistance. That this is not the state of affairs everywhere. We experience a lot of resistance because we promote this way of thinking. So
Aha.
I'm very grateful to Alex and especially Julia, because you're so young and coming up. So that it was very nice to hear that. Yeah. I
Thank
was
you,
also
Mayuri.
to now Leslie is indebted to me for the rest of his life. So that's also very nice.
Ah. So that is how psychologists work. At least Mayuri, the psychologist, works.
That's right.
They emotionally blackmail you for post-talk benefits.
That's
Julia, please don't mention this to others. We Indians will get a bad name.
He
Now,
laughs
Julia,
worse than me. Your laugh is worse than me. Yeah.
That's
Julia,
not
what are
worse.
your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Julia?
Yeah, I was a bit nervous, but I think it's a really nice idea that you do this, that you invite people from different countries, from different disciplines, and you have this talk. I really like it, and then you mentioned it at the beginning that this gender issues, and I think that would be a very interesting talk as well, to talk about sexual orientation, about gender issues, because that's also a big topic in Europe at the moment. So I think I really like that you are extending. You don't just go into the school and do your 8 hours a day and that's it, but you extend it and you learn. And these young people were really impressive, because what time is it there? It's like evening, isn't it? And they just
9 p.m. now. Yeah.
Yeah.
9 p.m.
Yeah, and they just they go home, they sit in front of the computer, educate themselves, they listen to people talking about these important issues. I was very impressed, and I'm really happy that you do this. I think it's really amazing.
Yeah, I think that suggestion on gender issues is a very good one. So if there is anyone amongst our colleagues here who has suggestion, people who would like to speak on this, we'll be very happy to know. I think it'll be fantastic. Gender is a very, very relevant topic, not only around the world, of course, but also very much within our context in India.
Especially with all the violence against women,
Yeah. So if you all have anyone in mind, Mayuri, Julia, Alex, please let us know.
My sister herself is on.
Is it? She's working. Okay, then we'll get in touch with you.
Sister, she's doing her thesis on gender violence, actually.
Okay, fantastic.
So, yeah, there'll be people. I mean, even we could join in. We should, I think, with good time towards the middle of next year, I think.
Okay.
Include another school, do a cross-school sort of debate or a discussion.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. If some other school could also join in.
Yeah.
In fact, all these sessions, I have been sending invites to other schools and other children.